Okay, good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from the Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me in the room is Michelle Duncan, and via Zoom is Richard Whitbread. The assessor today is Matthew Baracus, and the recording secretary is Stephen Lunn. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing, issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today. Mr. Lund, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name. Mr. Assessor, you're muted.
Matthew Stephen Barocus.
And do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Dupont, please state your full name.
Henry Dupont.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first property on today's agenda is 145 Sage Creek Boulevard, and the issue is assessed value. So Mr. Baracus, you may proceed with your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. File number 22-1696, roll number is 0609323660, 145 Sage Creek Boulevard. It's an apartment for, we got the assessment here for 2023, assessed value $57,650,000. Built 2020, 2021, 6 stories, 246 suites, 134 indoor parking spots, 181 outdoor parking spots. You can see on the next page, there's no recent sales. That sale, I think it's the land, but it's not applicable to the income approach. Quick correction on page 3, the unit count on this page is wrong. I'm not sure why the model put out this 396 unit count. That's not what it is. It's 246, and the breakdown is found on the next page. 86 one bedroom, 138 2 bedroom, and 22 3 bedroom. The applicant and I discussed this ahead of time, and the valuation is calculated off the correct
Okay, Mr. Dupont, any questions of the assessor?
So where's your information on your cap rate on McPhillips? Do you have any breakdown as how you arrived at it?
They will see that in the form of rebuttal later.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So for a subject property, did you allow for the fact that the property was in the lease-up stage for at least 2 of the buildings on the reference date?
No, we don't do that with any new buildings. This is a $50 million property. The vendor isn't going to let it go at a discount based on a short-term lease up. I know what their vacancy is now. They don't need it. They don't need a lease up.
So you're saying you know the vacancy after the reference date, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean we both know what it is.
But I believe 2 of the buildings came out on stream in May 2021 and then September 2021.
That's correct. But we're looking at the physical 2023 January 1st.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying you don't have a right to assess them. You have the right to assess them. But as of the lease-up stage, a property that is sold at that time, but did not be a purchaser not be looking at making an allowance for vacancy, the fact it's not rented up at the time?
They might ask for it. That's something that they might ask for under negotiation. I don't think a vendor would give it to them. I mean, this is a long-term investment. Someone who's buying this is buying this for a long time. The vendor isn't going to let it go at a discount because it's brand new and it's going to take them a few months to get people in there.
Well, it's at a risky stage. Okay, nevertheless. And the rents, where did you get the rents? There again, a lot of the rents would be after the reference date.
Well, yeah. So the table at the bottom, that was from March 2022. That's after the reference date from the last hearing. So basically what I'm forced to do is in terms of the presentation, is put my weight for the purpose of this is on the rent comparables on page 4.
Did you in fact use that table and factor it back, or is that what you did?
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of actuality, yeah, that's what I did. I didn't use that table, but I used the actual rent roll that I received. It was a November 5th, 2021 rent roll, but I can't present that because it's post reference. So what I'm saying is I'm putting my weight on page 4, showing what the comparables in the South are renting for, because that's what I'm constrained by.
So any of your comparables allow for discounts or just the asking rents?
I didn't look into that. So I don't have an answer to that. These are the rents that were in our model. So whoever reviewed it should have removed the discounts, but I personally didn't go into each mailer and verify that.
For expense ratio, where'd you get your expense ratio?
That's just the modeled expense ratio.
And your cap rate 4.7, that's quite low in relation to the other cap rates that you have.
Well, I mean, 2390 McPhillips, 4.79. I mean, I have the breakdown is going to come out right away. So they'll see that. That's the most applicable one. That's the property that's new, that's big, in the suburbs. So I would say it's actually a pretty good comparator.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
Richard, any questions?
Sorry, I was muted. I want to dwell on that cap rate table as well. So if I understand what you've got here, Matthew, you have McPhillips, which you're relying on, as you say, it's the most comparative. But I look at the dates of the other buildings, the effective age is many, many years older than the building we're talking about. The size, the value of the suites aren't even half, in most cases, of what we're talking about. So, in effect, did the model just pick these and you selected these half dozen? Or how does this setup work?
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. So, so the modeled cap rates, those are the cap rates selected by the model. The 4.7 cap rate assigned, that's assigned by the model based on the data collected. Pardon me, this table on page 5, these are sales that I've found. It's just meant to show, we have a range of cap rates, right? And a lot of the time we get asked here, well, do you have any examples, any sales? So what it is, I combed through a spreadsheet of all the sales and found the ones that had 3 years good income and expense reporting with the sale price between unrelated parties. And I was able to calculate a stabilized net operating income, and then using this known sale price, I was able to come up with a capitalization rate. In regards to the half a dozen here on page 5. I wouldn't say that other than 2390 McPhillips, I wouldn't put weight on any of these other ones because, like you said, they are older, they're smaller, but 2390 is a good comparator. It's big, it's expensive to get into, so the parties purchasing it would be the same parties in the market for 145 Sage Creek. So I think it's a very good cap rate sale. We do have a breakdown how I came up with those calculations coming up in the rebuttal, so you'll see how I did that.
So it will clarify why these other five, why these other 5 appear here?
Well, no, not so much that. It's just a bolt-on table I put on every, because sometimes every property, because often because we have that cap rate range table on the next page, I often get asked, well, you know, do you have any sales showing the 20th percentile from whatever it is, 4 point something to 5 point something, and that's an example of that. So that's to cover that. But specifically this property, I would say that 2390 McPhillips is a pretty good. If you're looking at for an actual cap rate sale, that's a pretty good one. And you know, there's not a lot of. You'd be surprised about. There's a lot of sales, but how little of them are actually usable. So I think Altus and I were kind of in the same boat in that regard. So I'm putting my weight on 2390 on a site-specific basis if I was to, but the modeled cap is 4.7, which falls
Okay,
in
we'll
line.
leave it there, Matthew. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, and I have no questions that haven't been asked. So Mr. Dupont, you can begin.
Can I give the rebuttal report on my his cap rates now, or is that to be done later?
You would do your presentation in whole, then we'll question you on your presentation, then you give your rebuttal evidence.
Okay, so I gotta find it. Okay, so I got my report. So the first page, I showed a photo. It says 57 million. We're requesting 45 million. And we can jump ahead to a description in the maps. So that page 6 will show that there's 3 properties. So the tall one on the right, the one we have the photo, and then there's 2 smaller ones, I believe 48 apartments each, and these are the ones that were built late, May and September, first start the rental. Then we have the overhead map of the property. Then we can jump ahead again. Page 13, it's where we start with the cap rate. So the so we have a cap rate report. The assessor is using 4.7. We're using 5.5. We're using a base cap rate 5.25 plus a 0.25% premium due to risk during lease up. So if somebody's buying a property while it's being constructed, or in case of 2 rear apartments are being constructed, but we're not up for rental yet. There's a risk period during that time, so we're allowing for a 0.25% premium on that. Then we have the cap rates we have for different age groups. 1999 plus, which is the subject property, we're using 5.25. We'll go to the cap rate study later on. So then we have the income approach on this. So we stabilize the rent at 4,428,000. We're at 1,500 per suite. We have some listings that we got so that the 1 bedrooms were listed 1370. The 2 bedrooms for 1200. 2.5 bedrooms for 1645. And then we use 5% for vacancy. We have a higher vacancy for lease up, which is not that high, because on those rates would actually be much higher. Not sure what the assessor had for 2021. They had 4,000,004 with 2.6% vacancy. Now that 4,729,000. So they went from 1,505 per suite to 1,602 per suite. So we're at 1,500 per suite. So similar to what the assessor had for 2021. So we use the same expense ratio. Line 32 is the assessor, 40.82. So then when we arrive at the cap rate, we use 5.5, which is our base cap rate, 5.25 plus 0.25% for lease up, versus the assessor 4.7, which is certainly at the low end. Then the appendix, we have the assessor data, etc. The appendix page 20 shows the floor plans. It shows the floor plans and amenities on that property. So this listing is for 1,370. So 1.5 bedroom is very small, 672 square feet. That's 1 bedroom plus 1 bath plus den. Then the next property, the listing. Yeah, I gotta rotate. That's the one that's 2 bedroom, 1,200. And it shows the amenities, etc., what they have, etc. They're asking for 1,200. And the page 25, the 2.5 bedroom, they're asking for 1,645. Then page 26, we start with the municipal board decision, where the board is giving a higher cap rate for the lease up period. So that's the first one, 260 Main Street. So the we should have some highlighted areas. So page 7 of that order. It's an older decision because the cap rates are high. It says the cap rate at 11.5 is the lower end of the comparable properties. It does not reflect all the circumstances of the subject property in its first years. The board will increase the cap rate to 12% to take into account the risks associated with the startup of the new hotel, which is a hotel, but nevertheless the same principle. It's a startup, so that a hotel would maybe take longer than an apartment. But during a lease up stage for an apartment, it's still at a risky stage. We should allow for cap rate premium. So they had allowed a 0.5% premium. We're allowing a quarter. Then there's another decision on page 34. We can go where it's highlighted. Highlighted page 50. Board recognized previous order the cap rate associated with a new hotel should be increased. And in this case, the board is prepared to accept a 12% rate recommended by both parties and recognized and subject is not an established hotel in its revenue calculations. So that's basically give you the principle of allowing for higher cap rate during a startup. So I'm finished with the brief itself. I'd like to go to the cap rate report. Cap rate reports in two parts. One main part. We have the market reports on page 2. Collier, CBRE, Cushman. So compare what they had for 2018, the first quarter, with what they have for 2021, first quarter. So Collier's low rise, the 5 to 6% for both 2018, 2021. So the low end is 5%. So the low end would be applied to subject because the subject is new. CBRE, the low end was 5.5. 2018 is now 5.25. I can't hear. Is somebody trying to talk? No? Okay. So the Cushman was low end 5, is now still 5. Collier's high rise was 5, it's now 5, also low end. CBRE high rise is higher quality. High rise B was 5 low end and still 5 low end. Then the Cushman high rise was 4.75, is now 4.5. So of all the market reports, that's the only one that's on the low end below the 5. Skip a few pages. Page 5. So the compares the previous cycle. So we went to the municipal board, and we settled all the cap rate. That was actually between myself and Matt. And these are what the cap rates we settle for the various age groups. So it's hard to get cap rates for newer properties. You have to take that into relations to other age groups. So the last one, all properties built in 1999, we had settled at 5.25. And then the high rises for previous age group 80 to 98, we settled 5.25. Then the high rises, previous age group 5.5. So you see patterns. So the older the property, the higher the cap rate. So this fits into the cap rate for the other properties also. So after that, page 5 is our cap rate. So comparables on page 6. So we do show 2390 McPhillips. We have a cap rate of 5% on that. Then we have cap rates of older properties. In certain cases, the assessor has the same cap rate as us, and we're very close in our calculations. And then the second group of properties, we have the 333 Ward that was sold in 2016. That was a relatively new property, 2006, and the cap rate on that was 5.07. The other one, the last 3, 718 Beach was built in 2014, sold 2017. The cap rate we had at 5.39. 100 Southview, built in 2016, built in 2014, sold in 2016. There's a cap rate 5.59. So we have 4 cap rates of the newer properties. In the last 3 cap rates, we had those cap rates for the 2020 settlement, and we had settled 5.25 for that age group. Page. Yep, sorry. Yeah, so page 8. Cap rate city samples to the city is relatively.
I'm going to intervene on this one. Any information on what the cap rates were last cycle is a very limited value to us without hearing the evidence that was presented at these hearings. So the past cycle is the past cycle, and we're concerned about cap rates this cycle.
I realize I should take that into context. I have the 10 comparables, which I have, and so now I just want to go to page 10, which is the assessor's cap rate, 2023 cap rate versus the 2020. So the varied cap rates for 2008 building 4.95, then they have 4.9 and 4.75, etc. We have some lower cap rates. So okay, so we have to go to the I have to find my appendix D cap rate.
That's in a separate document, I believe.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah. So I didn't open it yet, so I have to go find it.
Mr. Chair, I did just send you a quick email regarding some logistics. If you have a second to check that, please.
Sure. Just a minute here. Okay. All right. Shouldn't be an issue. I don't think we're dealing with cap rates here. That should be okay. But just to let everybody know that we've got a limited time here. They need this room this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Anyways, this cap rate submission should be good for all cap rates today. So the appendix D, page 44 is the cap rate calculations for the first one on the 2390 McPhillips. Both the assessor and ourselves have. So the pro forma had 1,461,000. They had 970 NOI. If we divide that by the sale price, we get a cap rate of 5%. We're not sure what the assessor did to get that. And so then after that, we have the next photos and the next page, etc. The amenities they had. So it's quite a very nice building. And the other cap rates, if you know that maybe not applicable to subject, it's in relation to the whole thing. Now you don't want to go through the cap rate report for each of the other properties coming up. Then we have a cap rate of 555 Corden, It shows how we arrived at it. We get 5.73, and I believe that's one of those the assessor has. It's very close to us. We have all the data behind that. Then the next cap rate's on page 57, starting on that. 677 Maryland shows the years we have, how we stabilize, and the cap rate we have obtained, and all the background information for each one of those. So it shows the workup and the background information at all the cap rates. And they're going to believe the assessor has agreed or come close to some of our cap rates on the some of these older ones, so that well, we tend to be closer in agreement for properties built in the 70s or 80s. So that would be my cap rate report and the full report that we have. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Barocas, any questions on the Mr. Dupont's main brief?
Yes, I do. I also have a rebuttal to the cap rate. Would you want me to do the main brief questions first and then move on to that after?
Main brief questions first, yes.
Okay, sounds good. Let me just get this. Sorry, it's just. Here we go. Okay, so in your main brief, do you have any specific rent comparables in regards to how you generated your rents?
No, I don't. It went with the listings they had on the market.
Okay, so your listings, they're found on beginning on page 21. So if we could go there, please, that would be great. So I'm just looking because I know we are stuck with reference dates here. It says in the top left corner, this was pulled the 17th of October, 2022. Would that not mean that these rents are post-reference?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have, just in regards to the other ones, so I'm kind of trying to go quick here. Do you have any pre-reference date rent information in regards to how you calculated your estimated rents on this property?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So then looking more. So just, okay. So I'll go to your page 15, which is your workup on
14,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So looks like what you did is, so you applied a premium for a lease up on the cap rate. Is that a 0.5 premium or is that a 0.25 premium?
0.25.
Okay.
The cap rate for that base is 5.25.
Okay. So, but you also bumped the vacancy to 5% from market vacancy. Would that not be double counting in your mind what the lease up issue is, granted that you've applied a boost to the cap?
No, maybe it's more than one way to adjust for a certain item. In this particular case, you have higher vacancy. Somebody buying in April 2021 will be seeing a higher vacancy, so there's risk and to buy and the cap rate. The return at the end, you don't know whether you'll achieve those particular rents, whatever you're forecasting. So you would have a higher cap rate for forecasting the future income stream or the permanent type income stream. And then you have the vacancy, which is to allow for the risk at the time that you're doing that you're going to need time to lease up.
Okay. And just for the rents, you got it from the listings. Are you aware? You're aware that there's above ground and underground parking with this property, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you would know that they pay, I think it's $50 for outdoor and 150 for indoor. Would you agree with that?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you factored parking into your calculation
No, I did
overall
not.
rent?
No, I did not. No. My rents are basically the same rents that you had, the assessor had for the 2021 assessment.
Okay. All right. And then I guess in regards to, you put some, I got to rotate. Okay. So you put some municipal board orders in here at the end here.
Yeah.
So so these are both hotels. That's correct, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So on the highlighted portion on page 33, it says the board will now increase the capitalization rate to 12% to take into account the risk associated with the startup of a new hotel. Does that not indicate to you that this is specific to a hotel? They didn't say the startup of a new property, but the startup of a new hotel, given its unique set of operational circumstances.
No, it's a principle that when the property is being constructed, we have the same thing with apartments. Sure, we're supposed to give it the physical conditions of 2023, but it's the economic conditions of the valuation date, April 1st, 2021. How do we take into account that there is a lease up? And anybody buying at that point in time would either have vacancies or apartments not rented and looking at the risk. So this is a hotel, but it recognizes the risk during the lease up or startup process.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So this is the assessment years are 2022, 23, 24. I'm just trying to go through this. Was the issue of the Pan Am Games? Did that come up in this order at all? I'm looking at page 30. The peak of summer due to the Pan Am Games analysis shows 14 hotels and the overall average of 12.9. Did the better occupancy rate of the Pan Am Games play into the decision they made? I haven't read this yet. I just need a little bit more background on it.
No, the final decision may have taken into consideration Pan Am Games, but what we're going into is to the cap rate adjustment for the fact it's a startup, and everything else, how they value the hotel, has nothing to do with what you're doing today. So
Okay, and then
yeah.
Okay, and then the reference date, this would be from the 90s then, 98, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's an older decision.
Okay, and then just this second decision on page 51, just to be clear.
That's a 2002 to 2004
yeah.
assessment. Sorry.
Okay, and in the highlighted part of 51, it says the board recognized the risk associated with a new hotel, and they specified hotel. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, those are my questions for the main brief. I do have some cap rate rebuttal that I'll go through as quick as possible.
Okay, do we have that?
I did pass it along the other day, so I believe the secretary should have that.
I haven't
Okay,
been able to find it.
Not seeing it.
No.
Are you going, could you please place it in our folders there, Stephen?
And that is the applicant or the assessor's brief rebuttal?
The assessor's rebuttal.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I can find it myself. Can you email that to me too? Or?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, will the board members have an opportunity to question the applicant before that rebuttal based on his presentation?
Yeah, I guess we'll go through that now. So any questions from the panel on Mr. Dupont's main brief? Richard, you have questions?
Yeah, I wondered, you talked about these buildings 2021. Were they built all at the same time? Were they built in sequence? Can you share that?
The building at 145 Sage Creek itself was built, the one where I have the photo. It was rented first, and then the two buildings in the back, which have the addresses 40 and something Hibana, those were built afterwards, and they came up for rental in May and September 2021. So they had not started lease up yet.
So it makes sense. The way I've seen buildings go up is you build one, it fills up to some capacity, then the other ones start getting built. And that sounds like that's what happened here. So today,
Yeah, they went in stages. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
a year later, roughly a year and a half later, what is the true vacancy of those 3 buildings or 5 buildings?
I checked in 2022 current, and I believe the were mostly filled up, so they had a normal 2-3% vacancy.
So it's fairly normal to the 2-3%.
Yeah. They didn't run into problem after they had the lease up. It has stabilized, so that sometimes when they build, you just can't get the rents they have and have problems for a long time. But this one did not.
But I understand that. But I also understand that you, as Matthew pointed out, you've increased the vacancy and you've added the risk factor onto the cap. So I'm just trying to dig into that a bit. I appreciate
But
that.
I'm not saying if you're buying on April 2021, you have a vacancy at that point in time. Now, if we look 2 years after, they don't have a vacancy problem. But as a buyer, you don't know that on April 1st, 2021. So that if you're looking at as of that particular date, there's a vacancy. So somebody would allow for a vacancy for time to to get it to fully leased. They don't know whether they will ever get fully leased. They don't know if they have to reduce the rents.
No, that's
So
fine.
it's-
Thank you. Questions answered. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, I've actually, this gave rise to a question I have of Mr. Barakas. In past cycles, the city has handled lease up by giving a grace period from the time a property becomes available for leasing till the time it goes on the books, basically. Is that how the city still handles the issue?
No, we haven't done that for a couple cycles. It doesn't make sense based on the size of the properties. Often the time we're finding we're giving, sometimes they pre-lease them. They lease them up before they're even completed. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have issues achieving their rents and there's chronic vacancy. And then that's something we address at that point. But overall, as a kind of a neutral policy, we don't give that anymore because we weren't finding that it was really justified because they lease up for the most part pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. And so no more questions. So do we have your rebuttal evidence in our
I did put the assessor's rebuttal in the OneDrive or the SharePoint.
Yeah.
You see it?
At the very
Okay.
bottom,
rebuttal to Altus cap rate study?
Yep, that's it. And Mr. Dupont, did you receive my email?
Oh, yeah, I gotta open it. Yeah, I got it, yeah.
Open it.
So I go into my rebuttal first, is that correct?
I think we'll logically do the city's rebuttal first, and then we'll do your rebuttal and questions.
Okay,
So, Mr. Brock, it's on your rebuttal.
Okay, so again, so this is going to apply for all the properties. So I'll do it once. I'll do it efficiently, and then I'll ask that it be applied to all the properties. So page 1, basically rebuttal to the Altus cap rate study. So it's changed from the last rebuttal because they removed some properties. They added a bunch of properties, basically from the 2020 cap rate study. Fortunately, it's something that we had reviewed when we were negotiating. So here is on page 2. This is the table. So basically, it comes down to a difference in stabilization and whether we agree or not in regards to whether a property is usable in terms of what the purchaser is saying about how they came up with their purchase price. So the first one, 2390 McPhillips, in regards to this property, I would say itself is the most important. It is, you can see the sale date. It's October 9th, 2020. 2020, yeah. So our reference is April 1st, 2021. So this is a sale that happened during the coronavirus pandemic. The city of Winnipeg delayed their assessment to the 1st of April 2021 in an effort to take this into consideration. We didn't know what was going to happen, so we bumped the reference date. That's why we had an extra off cycle year. So in regards to that, I believe more weight should be put on the sales that happen within the coronavirus pandemic, because that's what we're doing here. That being said, not all of my sales occur in that time period, because I think Henry will agree that while there's a lot of sales, not all of them are usable. It's actually, you'd be surprised how few of them are in terms of usable information. So we do agree with some, but we disagree with others, and I'll show you why. So page 3, this is 2390 McPhillips. So pardon me. So Altus used I believe a realtor pro forma. You can see on the chart the second column on the left. They were going with I assume the data that they were given. So with the 19,400,000, it calculated a 5% cap rate. The issue is they didn't really have any data to base that off of. So when you look at my stabilized workup here, I use the actuals. I use the average vacancy of 3 years to come up with the effective gross income. If I'd used the most recent vacancy, the cap rate would actually go down to 4.7, which is what we're looking at on this property. But I use the average, 1.05. And then I stabilized 3 years. I have the mailers, and the mailers are on the next few pages here. So I use the most recent insurance, 5% EGI management. I use the most recent marketing, hydro, water, sewer, heat. Then I averaged the repair and maintenance, 837 for a brand new build. Makes sense. Wages and benefits, the most recent, reported taxes, and it came up to a 37.11 expense ratio, which when you look at the expense ratios of the years 2017 to 2019, it's right there. So I'm not stabilizing at a percentage that is far away from its historical performance. So it really gives me confidence in that regard, and it calculates a 4.79. That's the new sale we have. It's a good one. And so then you have the Altus workup on the next page. You can see how they calculated the 5%. They didn't really have much data to go off of. So I would say, based on the evidence presented, I mean, 479 is what it is. It's pretty clear. What the realtor often says, the advertised cap rate is not what the cap rate actually ends up being. I've seen that multiple times. Pardon me. Okay, so then I have the mailers on from page 5 to pardon me, page 10. So you can check the numbers I used. It's luckily these mailers are not that complicated, so it wouldn't take that long. So please, when you're deciding on a cap rate for this property and for new properties, really look at 2390 McPhillips, because that's the best evidence we have within the pandemic sale of a newer build with good mailers. 555 Cordon, we don't always disagree. 5.74, 5.73, we're the same. Great. Maryland, this is we've had this last go around with the last mailer or last cap rate study rebuttal. So basically, what I've done is the only difference between us and Altus is I use the two most recent repair and maintenance, averaged it to 32,000, which is about 1,000 a unit. What happened is the building was renovated in 2013. What happens after the renovation year? You get a couple years of low repairs and maintenance just due to everything being fixed up, new, not damaged, not needing to be replaced. So Altus use a 4-year, we use a 2-year. That's why they're at 5.66. We're at 5.5. And you can see that I put their work up on page 14 next to it, so you can compare easily in one document without having to flip back and forth, because it can be confusing, at least for me. 210 St. Mary's. This is from you notice the format of my spreadsheet changed because it was from an older template I was working off of when I was looking at the 2020. So there's just a difference in stabilized repair and maintenance. We've stabilized at 745. Altus has 388 a unit. Other than that, it's the same. I mean, this building, it's from 52. It's not going to run indefinitely at 388 a unit. It's more likely to run at 745 unit, which in my mind is still low. But regardless, that's the difference there. So we're at 571. Altus is at 618. Balmoral. Okay, so this is one of the properties that I marked down as unusable. So what I've indicated here is that so this, what you're seeing on page 17 is the sales mailer. This is what the purchaser fills out and submits to the city once they purchase the property. And you'll notice if you go to page 18, line 32 was the purchase price based on the property's net operating income. No. So basically, the person who purchased this is self-declaring, saying that they didn't base their sale price on the net operating income. So they must have based it on something else. Therefore, any calculation of stabilized actual net operating income doesn't matter. So you can't really determine a cap rate from it. Because they didn't use it. That's not how the sale price was made. If you change the sale price, if they based it on the actuals, the sale price would probably be different. Regardless, we've stabilized. If we were to stabilize using that sale price, we got 616. Altus has 675. I didn't look into this one very much, just because they said they didn't use the NOI. So 215 La Vérendrye. There's a difference in stabilized repair and maintenance on this property and caretaking. That's where we differ. This is on page 21. So we're at 5.01 cap. Altus is at 5.74. So Altus stabilized at 800 a unit. The city used 1828 a unit. Basically, I use the 4-year average. That's what they're reporting. There's a pro forma on the property. Again, this shows how pro formas can be wildly different than actual performance. 1,800 on the year. I also used for wages and benefits, 4,000. That's what they are reporting for wages and benefits. The pro forma says 0. Altus estimated at 12. So see how the expense ratio is 19% on the pro forma. You can't really go off of pro formas. There's no building that runs at 19% expense ratio, not one that's being taken care of. And anyway, I think the taxes and utilities would probably eat most of that up in insurance. So Altus didn't use the 1,800 on page 22 for their repairs and maintenance. They used 800 per unit, which is closer, but I think that anyone purchasing this property will look at the actual repair maintenance history, not just an $800 a unit. It is a 73. I don't think we're going to see 800 a unit for any of the subject properties today. And again, caretaking, we use 4,000. It's been 4,000 historically. Altus went with 1,200. Not sure why. Page 22, 277 Langside. It's the same thing as. It's actually the same owner, the same vendor, I believe. Sold this property, and you can see on page 23, line 32, they indicated that the purchase price was not based on the property's net operating income. I know they did scribble in yes initially, and they crossed it out and hit no. The way to test to see which one they filled out correctly says, if yes, what is the capitalization rate? You assume you purchased the property. It's blank. It's no. So I won't dwell on that one for the purpose of going quick. Page 27, 333 Ward, we agree. There's no dispute there in terms of the cap rate being 5.07. And this property, I mean, you've probably heard this property 100 times. It goes back to January 2016. So if we're looking at newer builds coming in around 5 in 2016, you know, we're looking at a reference date of April 1st, 2021. Within the pandemic, interest rates dropping. We all know what it did to the housing market. I don't think a 4.7 cap rate is very aggressive, especially when we got the backup of the McPhillips sale to it. Beach. So this property is in Elmwood on page 29 here. So basically, there's a difference in how we've stabilized the repair and maintenance. Altus has got 500 a unit. We've got 1,000 a unit. So we don't have much history in regards to the performance of this property. Again, repairs and maintenance after a property is built or after a property is renovated are going to be low for a little bit. Everything's new. There's no damage, brand new, no problem, nowhere. As the property ages, the repair maintenance goes up. Anyone buying a property is buying it for a long-term investment is going to take that into consideration. So 500 a unit in my mind is too small. 1,000 a unit is more reasonable. And then we have a difference in regards to water. I did an extended analysis on page 29 in terms of the repair and maintenance to see what it's been subsequently after the sale, and you can see that the repair and maintenance per unit basis from 19, 20, and 21 has been between 900 and almost 1,300. So I think my estimate of 1,000 is fine, and then you can see the utilities. Again, they've been going up, but again, I just used the most recent utilities prior to the reference date, $4,691 on the water there. So I calculated a 5.04 cap rate. Again, it's a newer property. It is in Elmwood, and I believe it only has 6 units. Okay. All right, and not for nothing, we got another sales mailer for 718 Beach. If you go to page 32, and I'm almost done this, you can see was the purchase price based on the property's net operating income? The vendor or the purchaser checked off yes, and if yes, they assumed a 4.5 cap. I'm not saying that this should be a 4.5 cap. We've calculated at 5%, 5.04%. So we're closer to what the vendor's saying than what Altus is saying. And then the last property here, pardon me, 100 Southview. I'm saying it's in my opinion, it's unusable. We don't have any mailers prior to the reference date to do calculations on this property. Altus based their calculations, it looks like, on a pro forma. We know the pro forma has a 21% expense ratio. This property is it's basically look. I believe Altus has a picture of it. It's basically like a series of houses attached to each other. So more roofs, more mechanical to worry about, landscaping, more, roads going in between the properties, garages. There's no way on earth it's going to run at a 26% expense ratio. But we don't have the data anyway to calculate. So there's nothing for me to use to calculate a cap rate. So I'm saying this one is unusable. Certainly not a 26% expense ratio with a $600 per unit on the R&M. That's just not possible. So just drawing it back to page 2, when you're reviewing the cap rates, please take into consideration differences in stabilization and look at the repairs and maintenance and through the lens of what's reasonable and what you see on the the subject property reported side of the coin. I also have some cap rate sales. I also include the ones that are already in my evidence. 32R used to be an Altus cap rate study. It's not anymore. That one's 5.2. That is March of 2019. And then we've got the St. Mary's property and Bertrand from my evidence. Okay, so that's my rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, questions on the rebuttal, Mr. Dupont?
Yeah, on 3 of them, you say the questionnaire that the purchaser answered on the sale, did you rely on the income approach? Is that a reason to throw away a sale? Don't they say that often, and may even say that for some of the sales that you use?
If they did, I shouldn't have included it. But if they say they're basing their purchase price off of if they're not using the net operating income, then stabilizing the net operating income isn't gonna, they're not connected. So I wouldn't use that sale.
Was the purchase based on the property's net operating income? So they may say they were looking at the future net income. They may have gone on the sale price per door. They may have thought they were going to renovate. So maybe they had many reasons why they bought the property, and so maybe they just don't want to be painted in the corner, and they say that. So would you not believe that a questionnaire or sale should not be thrown out simply for that line as to whether they base it on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's not based off of the net operating income. So I'm not relying on it. I don't think Balmoral and Langside are very representative of the city as a whole. I think they're tougher areas. I mean, I wouldn't. I try and keep it to because we don't get the sales mailers often. So when we do, I tend to believe what they have to say. But they could have considered many metrics. Maybe they want to be painted into a corner. I don't know what they thought. All I know is what they're saying in this declaration.
And when they say the cap rate that they bought the property, you do not use that.
No, I don't. On Beach, I didn't go and I don't use it carte blanche, but it does
on any
indicate,
property, you do your own calculations. You don't rely on somebody else's calculations. You agree with that?
the calculations themselves, yes.
Yeah. So they're just questions that you ask, but you should not be relying upon those. You should do your own calculations as to whether you have a sale price. You do your own calculations, and whether they came up with a different figure or whether they say they relied upon it, it shouldn't matter to you.
Well, based on the technique in regards, like the stabilized net operating income and the sale price are connected in regards to the methodology that we both use into coming up with a cap rate. The owner of those 3 properties I indicated are unusable declared on line 32 that those 2 factors aren't connected. There's a disconnect there. So therefore, you can't determine a cap rate by it. It's if they said yes or they didn't declare, then okay, then yeah. Are they related? No, then you'd have to assume that they looked at the actuals and came up with a cap rate based on the stabilized net operating income and the sale price. But if they're saying they're not connected, then I have to go with that.
You have to go, yeah, sure. Page 19, the repair maintenance you use for, don't have the address of the property there.
Balmoral.
Okay, you use 22,400 from the pro forma, and you totally neglect the actual 3 years prior.
Yeah.
Then you say that I should not be using pro formas, yet you use in this case the higher pro forma repair maintenance. You ignore the actual repair maintenance.
I did. If I was to look at this again, I'd probably bump it up to 1,000 a unit on this one. I believe this particular vendor for Balmoral and Langside, for both of these properties, they're reporting extremely low repairs and maintenance in the years leading up to the sale. Like we're talking like $400, $500 per unit. And you and I both know that they don't run indefinitely at that amount. So you're correct. If I will correct this, I won't use the pro forma because typically I don't use pro forma stuff. So I would actually probably bump this up to 1,000 a unit for a property built in 72. I don't think that's unreasonable.
When we go in front of the boards, we don't use a round number. We always use a historical. And if it's low, we stabilize at the low. If it's high, we stabilize at the high. We don't say, because there's certain reasons we'll go higher than we'll go a round number, 1,000 or 2,000. It's not a normal way of
We're
stabilizing.
taking a fair bit of time on this one. Can we, get more,
Okay.
wrap it up fairly quickly?
Okay, page 22 at the bottom in red on my evaluation is cap rate says listing states many recent upgrades include storm windows in 2014, eaves troughs in 2016. So the actual repair maintenance includes those renovations. And that's why the pro forma had lower repair maintenance, yet you use those high ones in your evaluation. So would you agree that maybe you should not have done that because that was included CapEx?
Well, okay, so I ended up, I stabilized at 10,968 per unit. And I mean, that's close to 2013 when they, prior to the recent upgrades, it looks like. I get what you're saying. That could be true. Maybe the repair and maintenance might be a little bit high. But I think it's for a 1973, it's higher than 800 a unit. So that's something I might have to revisit.
718 Beach, page 29, you use much higher repair maintenance than actual. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they're in that particular case, you're not even using what the actuals are.
Well, if you see on my next page here on page 30, I actually took a look and saw what they've been spending subsequently because it was just built and then it's sold, right? So when after things are just built or after things are just renovated, like makes sense. Like there's going to be a little dip temporarily in repair and maintenance, but you can see after a few wonky years in 17 and 18, from 19 to 21, it's around $1,000. It's about 1080 between 19 and 21. I just think a knowledgeable purchaser and knowledgeable, more importantly, a knowledgeable seller is going to say, no, it's not going to, you're not going to have these repair and maintenance, or rather the purchaser would say this, not the vendor. They'd be like, I'm not going to get away with only, $2,000 a year on R&M on this. It's probably going to be $1,000 a unit, which you and I have seen time and time again through mailers and in this appeal process. So I don't think 1,000 on the long term is unreasonable at all.
But you're using the information after the sale date, which the purchaser would not have known.
No, but a prudent, knowledgeable purchaser would know that they're not going to get away with 500 a unit indefinitely. They're just not. We never see it on the subject property side ever. Look at all the properties today coming in on the repair and maintenance and compare them to 500 and 400 a unit R&M. Does that make sense?
That's all questions I have.
Okay, any questions from the panel on the city's rebuttal? Richard,
I have none.
Michelle?
None.
Okay, now Henry, we'll get to your rebuttal.
Okay. Sorry.
Do we have it in? Do we have it in our drive?
Mr. Dupont, was this the rebuttal specific to the property, or was this the one that applied to various properties?
To various properties.
Okay, thank you. I just sent that to you now, Mr. Brokus.
Is this the one labeled Altus Group rebuttal?
To assess your apartment cap rates?
Yeah. Let me just double check.
It is titled Altus Rebuttal Various Properties in the OneDrive.
Okay,
So it's not the Altus Group rebuttal 145 Sage.
No, that one's been removed.
Thank you.
okay, go ahead, Henry, and keeping in mind we've taken a fair bit of time on this first property.
I know. Okay, yes, such a comparable similar to St. Mary's. The property was bought with intention to renovate as per enclosed letter from D7, the property manager. They stated he was a first-time buyer. The property was in rough shape with the previous owner doing nothing for repair. So that the assessor's cap rate, they would have low repair maintenance, and the historical should have low rents. And so the purchaser bought with intention to renovate, we should be excluded because of that. It's a very low cap rate. That's the main reason. The assessor comparable 32 Arden. As per advertising, the property was renovated. Is getting intention when purchasing. But also there's laundry missing for 2018 versus existing laundry income for 2016, 2017. So they had it for 2 years and all of a sudden there's none. We closed it 2016, 2017 IE in this regards. But they're advised verbally that the manager Sussex did not report laundry because the vendor's sister would collect the laundry directly without going through the manager. So that it's an unusual situation where the property manager does not collect the laundry. So the assessor's got missing income for that particular cap rate. And then we have the order 18 to 14 months stating it was improper to use cap rates when they intend to renovate. And just the next page is the letter from D7, which states that. So we have that in writing. So that would be my rebuttal. I don't want to spend too much time.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brokus, on this rebuttal?
Oh,
Mr. Brokus?
you muted.
Sorry, I got too many windows going on here. Okay, so are you aware when 32 Arden was renovated?
It says in the ad after purchase.
It says after purchase?
Yeah, it's the current ad says recently remodeled units, newer appliances, fridge and stove, and facilities. So that's the purchaser advertising. It was renovated after purchase.
It doesn't say, just because it says recent, like I can, you know what, I won't find it, I won't take people's time now, but I'm pretty sure it was renovated prior to the purchase. So I'll just move on. And if you allow me to touch on that after, I'll probably look it up on break, but I know this question's come up before. And then, so in terms of St. Mary's here, you contacted the property manager? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Okay. COVID funds. Okay. Do you have any pictures of the property or anything?
No.
Okay. 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 So
Your cap rate is very low on this, like 3-4%. So unusual. You should throw it out anyways. You should not be using that.
okay. So just in regards to 32 Arden, I will look up the renovation date on break just to speed things along. But for now, those are my questions.
And,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Richard, any questions on Mr. DuPont's rebuttal?
None, thank you.
Michelle, any questions?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brockus. You want a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
Henry, a summation?
No thanks. No.
Okay, thank you for that property. And we'll take the cap rate to evidence for as presented for all the other properties. We don't have to repeat it. Time for a short 5-minute break. So we'll resume at 10:40.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let us resume with the second property on the agenda, 566 St. Anne's Road. Mr. Brockus, you can proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so 566 St. Anne's Road, pardon me, file 22-1668. Roll number is 0800464 2000, 566 St. Anne's Road. 2023 assessment, April 121, assessed value 35,528,000. It's been built in the mid 2000s, 168 suites, 100 indoor parking, 118 outdoor parking, 5 stories. Request for income information, page 2. They've completed that historically. Page 3, we've got the modeled workup. We've got 51 bedrooms, 118 2 bedrooms. Average monthly rent by the model, $1,501. We got a 4.95 cap. I've got net operating income of $1,758,000. The applicants, to speed things along, unless something's changed, the net operating income of the applicant is, I think it's about $20,000 higher. So predominantly, we're looking at a cap rate. A discussion on this, which we've talked about at great length already. So rent comparables are found on page 4. Bracket the subject property. We have the, I did a little workup here on page 5. The applicant and I talked ahead of time. I actually, I use the budgeted revenue instead of the actual revenue received, which I believe is about $10,000 less. Regardless, the model NOI is still a lot lower after that adjustment than the actual NOI. It's a cap rate issue. We're pretty close anyway from model to applicant, so I'm not going to dwell on that. Just I want to note the correction that the applicant very rightly noticed I need to make. So then we've got the mailers that follow the cap rate table. We've talked a lot about that already, so I'm not going to go into it any further. Pictures are fill out the end of my brief after the mailers, and this is just taken from the website. Looks like it's well kept, good condition. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Dupont?
No questions.
Okay, Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
Richard, questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, Henry, you can proceed with your,
Yeah, okay. So you go to the photos and you go to our page 13, which is the cap rate. So our table for cap rates, 1999 plus is 5.25, and that's what this property is. So the page 14, it's our income approach. So on top, it shows the age, 2005, shows the assessment. And the bottom right, line 33, our stabilized net income is 1,778,000. The assessors are 1,758. So we're actually 20,000 higher. As Matt said, is a cap rate issue. They're 4.95 or 5.25. So once you decide on the cap rate, you should get your value. So it's simply a cap rate issue. So that's my report. Thank you.
okay, questions, Mr. Brackus?
No, thank you.
All right, Richard, questions?
I have none.
Michelle, questions?
No questions.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentations then. We will go on to the third property, 632 St. Anne's Road. Let me just. Okay, I'll open the files. Okay, Mr. Brackus on 632 St. Anne's Road.
Oh, he's on mute.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Brackus.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. They got me in a different office today, so I got this screen up top, but I got it open now. So file number 22-964, roll number 0800675 2900 632 St. Anne's Road. Assessed value 8,894,000. Built in 78, no renos. On the record, 78 suites, 96 outdoor parking. We've got the income value summary here on page 3. The net operating income, 458,000. Just glancing ahead, I'm pretty sure, if my memory serves, that we have basically exactly the same net operating income from model to the applicant's stabilized. So I'm not going to again dwell on the particulars of the income net income calculation. Cap rate 5.15 as per the model. We've talked about cap a whole lot. Rent comparables are found on page 4. It's right there with its surrounding in the market. Reported summary income and expense review. I did, upon reviewing this further, there could have been some items in the less major repair and replacement that should have fallen into applicable repairs and maintenance expenses. So I would just ask the panel just to disregard this table on page 5 because our NOIs are virtually the same. It's predominantly a cap rate issue. So with all of that already being said, it's mailers and the pictures begin on page 11. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Hey, Henry, questions?
Your cap rate is 5.15, and yeah, some of the cap rates for similar age, like here we have here today, the 2 Beaver Hill properties, they're 10.45 and 10.4, not 5.45, 5.4. Why is it properties the same age at different cap rates by the assessment department?
I'm just trying to look at the property, the physical property record. That's a good question. I know that we've gone to smaller increments. We don't use quarter points anymore, so we don't have those cliffs like from 74 to 75 where it drops off so quickly. I'd have to dig into comparing the physical characteristics we have on record to make that determination. I know that size and area and story height do. I believe story height does, but I know for sure size and area come into play. But I actually don't have an answer to that question.
It's all questions.
Okay, Richard, questions?
Yes, have you visited this property, Matthew?
No, I have not inspected any of the properties on this docket.
I'm looking at the photographs and I'm looking at the outside of the photograph. The paint at the top looks fairly neglected, but yet I go inside the suite and they appear to have laminate flooring. There are some stainless, unless it's a show suite, stainless appliances, Korean tops. Do you know if remodeling has been done inside the building?
Well, I mean, it looks like that they've done some work on it. I know when you look at the applicant's brief and you look at their stabilized repair and maintenance, it's coming in at about $25.91 a suite. They did an analysis on it. So, I mean, that's pretty high. I know they're doing what they classify major repairs and maintenance. That could be replacement of countertops. I know taking the older fridge that's about to die and then replacing it, but also upgrading it at the same time to a stainless unit. So it looks like, without a doubt, they've done some stuff. I can't confirm that this is how just to be fair, all the inside of each suite looks like this. You can see the difference in kitchen on page 13 to page 12. So it looks like they probably, I would guess, that they probably renovate them once tenants move out when they have the opportunity to do so. But until then, I would say they probably just keep them as is.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. So Henry, your presentation then.
Jump to page 14. So repair and maintenance. So you can see maybe fairly quickly. So if you look under flooring replacement, sort of in the middle of the page after the green one, they spent over the years, the 5 years, 276 per suite, and the maximum that we have is 400 based on the replacement every 8 years. So they're slightly less than that. Appliance replacement, they're about at the max. So they do a good job replacing their appliances. The painting, you can see it's at the max, so they do a good job of painting. The counters, cupboards, and carpentry shown there. There's 18,000 1 year, 5,000, 1,300 1 year. Then the last 2 years, 37, 26. We disallowed those 2 years, so that they don't do that all the time. I would suggest that they only do that now and then when counters look bad. They will then be replacing that. So it's not something they're doing quite often. And then further down, you see building exterior. You spent 48,000 1 year in 2018. We disallowed that high year, but it is a type of property that have to paint the exterior, so that it requires more upkeep than other masonry building. So page 13, you'll see that my line 27, we're stabilizing at 25.91 per suite. With line 3, the potential rents are $11.39 per suite, so they have quite high rents. So that the rancho is pushing the rents to its limits. They spend a lot of money on their repair and maintenance to get those particular rents. So the one photo requiring painting the outside, it's more of an exception to the rules because they're very well maintained for their age. So they get the high rents due to the high repair and maintenance. So in the end, we have the same NOI as the assessor. So it comes down to cap rate. So the assessor is 5.15. We show in comments that 2020 municipal board was settled at 5.5 cap rate. And our cap rate analysis is 5.5 for that age group. And the cap rates summary is on page 12 for the different age groups that we have. And we had the cap rate data given a while ago. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Brockus?
No, thank you.
Okay, Michelle, questions?
No questions.
Richard, questions?
None, thank you.
All right, so thank you for your succinct presentations. Go to property 4, 122 Weatherstone Place. All right, so you can begin on 122 Weatherstone, Mr. Brockus.
Okay, thank you very much. File number 22-2438, roll number 06000678, 1122 Weatherstone Place. Original assessed value for 2023 was $6,184,000. I made a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $5,865,000. The calculations are on page 5. I just used stabilized 3-year to come up with a stabilized net operating income with the modeled CAF generates the $5,865,000 rounded valuation.
Okay. And how do you feel about that one, Mr. DuPont?
I accept.
All right. So recommendation accept. I thought you would. It's very close to your value.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the panel on this property then?
Thank you.
No.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll go to 395 Beaver Hill.
Okay. One moment.
Yep, I gotta pull up the files as well. Okay. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Brockus.
Okay, thank you very much. Pardon me. File 22-2208, roll number 06093309400395 Beaver Hill Boulevard. Reference date April 1st, 2021. Assessed value $11,337,000. thousand, roll year 2023. It's a not-for-profit 55 plus building. Hence you can see it's school tax exemption. On classification, it's institutional. Built in 97, we don't have any effective year built on it, indicating any sort of renovations to the property. 71 suites, 60 indoor, 23 outdoor. They've been good with handing in their mailers. Page 2, you can see page 3, this is the modeled workup. 71 units, 10 one-bedroom, 54 two-bedroom, 7 three-bedroom for the 71 total units. The average monthly rent as assigned by the model is $1,239.13. This is the model workup. Here with a 4.9 cap, comes out to the 11,337 rounded. We got the rent comparables on page 4, showing the rents in the area. So it fits within the range. It's bracketed in terms of average monthly rent per unit, effective year built. It's got some 3-bedroom units, comparables 1, 2, and 3. Do not ward is much. It's newer and nicer, and that's reflected in the average monthly rent. It gets, you can see the gross floor per area per unit is much larger with the subject property. Just a word of caution when looking at that, I wouldn't consider that metric because given that it's a 55 plus not-for-profit, these buildings typically have larger common areas for the tenants to mingle in. They often have like shared community kitchens for them to cook, hang out in, lounges. So I wouldn't use that as a determination that the suites at 395 Beaver Hill are bigger than the comparables went for. So what I did, because it's a not-for-profit and it's got a restricted pool of tenants it can grab from, the city of Winnipeg, like Manitoba Housing, like Regional Health Authority Housing, other not-for-profit entities, we just use market parameters. So what I did is I did an examination using the CMHC data from, should be 2020. October 2020, given the reference date is April 1st, 2021. So I use 3 metrics. I use the overall average rent for the area. I use the year of construction, and then I use they also break it down by structure size in regards to how many units there are. So I use those averages based on combined, averages taking into consideration the breakdown of the units. You can see how I did it on the tables. And then I was able to, it says zone and year, it's actually zone, year, and building count average. So building unit count average. So it came out to 1272. And then I compared that against the model rent to ensure that we weren't going higher than the model rent, because we were going at market rents for this property. It came out that we're about 2.6% or so lower than the market rents, so I didn't make a change. And then I have the tables here from the website. This just shows how I filled in my tables beginning on page 5, and I also have the link included if you want to look it up to verify where I got the information from. So I just put that in there as well. So capitalization rate evidence, you've heard already. And then we have the income and expense statement. Again, I didn't put any weight on this because you can see on page 15, it's run by Gapavilla. It's a non-for-profit 55 plus life lease in Southdale. So you can see it's got a large residence lounge and for daily coffee gatherings, main floor common room with kitchen. So again, I wouldn't, don't put, take that gross floor area with a grain of salt. I wouldn't consider it. So regardless, not for profit, we don't, the city doesn't look at the actuals there because it's not reflective of what a for-profit purchaser would assign the rents and would run the property expense-wise. As you can see on page 17, they've got a breakdown of the unit size from their application here. And you can see how the actual unit sizes are smaller than the gross floor area per unit. So that follows along with my previous comments. And then there's just a floor plan of a sample of a 2-bedroom unit and another 2-bedroom unit. And then there's some pictures. So I guess they didn't have good pictures of the interior on their website of the suites. The best I could find here was, I think this might be a guest suite actually on page 21. And this is a communal kitchen, very 1990s, and we don't have any effective age placed on it. So we just went with the model on this one. Thank you.
Okay, Henry, questions?
Your check with the CMHC, one of the checks that you have is for units with 210 units structure size, and the subject is only 71 units. So why did you go with the much larger structure size?
Oh yeah, you know what? That's that shouldn't have. That was an error. So that should be disregarded, and that is the higher one. So the rents would be coming in at looking at the year and zone. I think they'd be coming in more in the around 1245 in terms of the market rents rather than what is it, 1272. So yeah, that's a very fair comment. I missed that one.
So would you agree that your rent that you have, your EGI 1,021,000 should be what the board should rely on? Because we don't dispute that. So that Altus uses that also.
Okay, well we can just go with that then, yeah.
It's all questions I have.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry, I got a couple more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
A life lease. The reason to have a life lease is that the owner cannot increase the rents beyond what the operating costs are. You would agree with that?
Okay, so it says on page 16, entrance fees and rent amounts are subject to change without notice. I'm not sure actually.
Okay, it's all questions then.
Okay, Richard, questions?
I wanted to sit on that page 16 for a minute because I think that's a very clear language. Rent can be changed. What I'm more interested in is the refundable entrance fees for each apartment. It looks to be, if I was just guessing, around $40,000 on average for an entrance fee to get into this place. And that gives you some sort of guarantees, I guess. It's not clear here. But 40,000 at 168 suites is around $6 million. I go to the financials, I see nothing that talks about interest from a reserve of $6 million as revenue. Can you comment on that, Matthew? I'm not understanding this.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that has been discussed here in the past. Like that's part of the reason we're not valuing it as it's operating as a 55 not-for-profit life lease. We're valuing it as a for-profit regular apartment based on its physical. Now, you know, that's a fair comment. If you're going to look at the actuals, then you would have to look at the potential interest that the owner would accrue being able to collect those entrance fees and hang on to them, because they're not just like under the bed, you know, they're being used in a, you know, a productive, profitable way. One would imagine a prudent investor and owner would do so. So, but we're not valuing it like that. We're just simply going with market valuation on what a for-profit, open to everybody, you know, below 55, above 55, what those suites would get physically based on our inventory and our property records. So we're not valuing it in that manner. And that we have just a hesitation in, you know, taking the income and expenses, the actual income and expenses from this operation, but then just disregarding the entrance fees like they don't do anything. So we're just doing model market on this property.
I see. So you essentially, what I hear you saying is you ignore that entrance fee and there's no factoring into the financials of whatever might flow from that entrance fee.
Yeah, the entrance fee, and we're not looking at the the income or expenses either. We're just going with a market valuation on it.
Mm-hmm. I'll leave it there. Thanks. No further questions.
Okay, Michelle, questions?
No questions.
Okay, let me look here. It's 1997 property, and you got the cap rate at, well, near the lower decile, maybe just lower quartile, maybe just above it. Why is that? Why is that property given that cap rate?
The cap is assigned by the model. The model takes things into consideration like area, size, I know for sure, whether it has any renovations or not. So not having the data from the model in front of me, that's the best answer I can give you.
Okay, so thank you for that, Henry. You can proceed.
Okay, life leases. We went to municipal board in 2018 for case management. And one of the first cases was 333 Vaughan. And the assessor at that time was trying to include interest on the entrance fees, 2 to 4% that we're adding to the income stream. And the board had stated at the time that people pay the interest fees because it's a life lease. They're getting the guarantee of leasing for life. And the rent cannot increase beyond the original cost, amortization, interest, and the operating costs. So that they can only, usually the big thing is the repair and maintenance. So the more they spend on repair and maintenance, the more they can increase the rents. And if they have low repair and maintenance, they don't maintain as well, they will have lower rents. And every year they have an excess of revenue over expense. And that excess goes to the next year and it reduces or increases the rents that are able to be charged. So we went to municipal board and ever since then, we do not add anything for entrance fees because that's for the life lease guarantee. And the actual rents that they have on the property is directly related to the operating of the property. So therefore, usually when you have higher repair maintenance, you have higher rents, etc. Then they can't charge higher rents unless they have the higher operating costs. So we take the position that life leases are at market or based on the life lease that it has, they cannot charge more rent than what they're spending on the operating expenses. It's directly related. It's a bit like the other apartments, they have the rent controls and they can exceed the rent controls when the operating costs exceed and they apply, etc., to the government. In this case, it's self-regulated by their financials. So if we go to our report, at page 13, so line 13, we have the effective gross income after the vacancy and all the other income. We stabilized 1,021,000, same as the assessor. I do show in the last column what we settled the municipal board at. We had settled at 1,019,000 for that particular settlement, and it shows every item that we settled at, and we settled at 5.5 cap rate. We got a value of 9,003,000. The stabilized repair and maintenance was 108,000. Now we're 116,000. It was directly related and site specific of the subject property. So that we now start at the 1,021,000 for effective gross income. We stabilize as per normal. So I don't want to compare to the 2020 settlement all the time, but the line 23 subtotal utilities, they're 130,000. They were 116,000 before. So everything is on a site specific. So the repair maintenance 116, it was 108,000 from last time around. And the taxes are now 126. The calculated CC20 were 117 before. So we use the same cap rate, and we get a value of 7,008,000, which is a lot lower than the assessor. It's lower than the previous settlement, but it's done on a site specific basis. Also same as before. The next page, the revenue repair maintenance. Part of the 2018 case management. We also had a hearing at 333 Vaughan, and we went to the board. And at the board, there was an agreement at the board that so it was not just a case management, it was actual, after exchange of reports, the assessor agreed to use the actual rents without any interest on the interest fees, and they agreed to use reserve expenditures. So that was a change in the way the assessor did things. So in the past, we were always arguing against reserve expenditures, and they stopped arguing that. With that particular decision we had back in 2018. So on page, after page 13, this will be have the repair maintenance. So we have each of the years for each and every item. And then one of the items that we disallowed, well, waste and snow shown separately, and for general building, it averages 51,000. We only allow it 18,000, which is the 2020 relatively low year times 50%. There's no flooring etc. applies because that shows up in reserve. So then subsequent items on the repair maintenance, we use it as a 4-year average. So it comes to 1638 for strictly repair and maintenance, and the reserve expenditures. That's roof, we disallowed that. Parking lot parkade, there was small, and we allowed 448, which is not bad. And for general, it was very erratic, and we allowed the average. Flooring replacement, we allowed the 4-year average, which is 317 per suite, which is less than a 400 maximum. The appliance replacement is 164 per suite, which is less than a maximum, so close to the maximum. Counters and cupboards, they're not spending much on that this present time, and that's what we stabilized at. We disallowed the building exterior, 68,000 in 2019 and 13,000 2020. It should be expected you would spend some money on the building exterior, but we did not allow anything on that. So we end up at some 65 for the reserves, and that goes back to page 13. So that we have the repair maintenance comes 116 or 1630 per suite, and the reserves comes 54,000, some 65, and for the settlement at 2020 had 28,000. So that's one of the reasons why we have a lower value now. It's because we are allowing more for repair maintenance. There's more taxes and et cetera, et cetera. So it's all on site specific. We valued each item individually, on a site specific basis, and that's my value. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Barakis, questions? Mr. Barakis, do you have questions?
You're muted.
Yeah, I think he must be muted. We lost him apparently.
He's joining.
He's still there. He's
Sorry, I keep getting kicked out. My screen keeps disappearing. Then I hear you, and then I don't have the window. But yes, just a few questions. Thank you. So just looking at the workup on page 14. So you put the municipal board settlement from 2020 in at 9,330,000, and we've got your 2023 at 7,873,000. Given that it's a 15% decrease from 3 years prior, does that give you any pause for reconsidering your 2023 value?
No, we settled 2020 based on the site specifics, and it may have been a high settlement because we had to use whatever information we had. So we stabilized the requirements and reserves based on what we had. We stabilized the taxes and utilities, etc., based on what we have. So now we have higher utilities, higher requirements, higher reserves, and therefore it works out at the same cap rate, same way of doing things. Now we have higher expenses, and we have to take that into consideration.
Okay, so just to be clear, when you're combining, I'm looking at repair and maintenance as looking at what you've allocated as replacement reserve expenditures plus repair and maintenance. So I've calculated the repair and maintenance on a per unit basis for 2023 in your report as 2,403 per unit. Whereas on the 2020 settlement, you have it at 1,925 per unit when you combine those two metrics. I'm just wondering if we're not perhaps looking at, a block of high years here leading up to the April 1st, 2001 reference date, and then maybe extending the repair and maintenance analysis backwards further would give a more accurate long-term analysis. Would you agree with that statement?
No, so 2020 was based on prior 4 years. We can't go back 8 years or 10 years. So the closest years that we have is the most applicable, and so the older repair and maintenance should not be used. Actually, we had 5 years this time around. And we stabilized. We had them after page 13, page 14, each individual, and we stabilized each individual item. So I certainly would not be going past 5 years. We never go past 5 years.
Mhm.
Sometimes you only go 2 years, but never more than 5.
Okay. So in your opinion, 2,403 per unit for a 1997 building is what a for-profit purchaser would run this property at on an ongoing basis?
No, what figure you're using?
So for 2023, when you look combining the repair and maintenance with the replacement reserve, it comes out to about 2,403 per unit. I'm just asking if for a 1997 build, a for-profit purchaser would expect to run it on a yearly basis, having to spend that much for repair and maintenance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we have some other properties on the same docket today are stabilized at around 2,500 per suite.
Okay.
And so the effective gross income is 1199. So that is relatively high rents, relatively large suites, like you say, because they have some 2 bedrooms, some 3 bedrooms. To the suite mix toward the more bedrooms that requires more repair and maintenance. And so I believe the repair and maintenance is dead on. It's related to the rents they're getting. It's related to 5 years in detail analysis. I believe is totally correct.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Richard, questions?
I don't, thank you.
Michelle, questions?
Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions, so thank you for that. We will move on to item 6, 1031 Beaver Hill. All right. So, Mr. Baracus on 1031 Beaver Hill.
Okay, one moment. Alrighty, so I'll read it in, and then we have an agreement that we negotiated ahead of time. So just let me pull my brief up here. Okay, so 1031 Beaver Hill, which is file number 22-2543. Roll number 060073333500. Assessed value originally was 18,715. It's an apartment. It's got 9 buildings, 1979, no effective year built. My original recommendation was for 16,496 to better reflect market value. However, via discussions ahead of time with the applicant, made a recommendation to 15,504, which is the rounded figure. If you like, I can give you a breakdown, or I could pause to see if the applicant is still okay with that.
Well, we would need at least a basis on which it was reduced.
Not a problem. Okay, so the effective gross income we have at 1,934,226.
Okay.
And then we have the total expenses at 1,097,029.
1,097,000.
Yeah, 029.
029. Okay.
So that's the net operating income of 837,198.
837,198. Okay.
Yeah, and the 5.4 cap here for the 1979. So that generates an assessed market value of 15,504, which is rounded.
Okay. And Henry, how do you feel about this value?
I agree.
Okay. Any questions, Richard, on this valuation?
No. None.
Michelle?
Questions?
Okay, thank you for that then. Flipping, going down the street to 1037 Beaver Hill. Okay, open the files. All right, on 1037 Beaver Hill. Mr. Brookus.
Okay, just let me, we have another similar situation here. Just have to pull it up. Because I believe we have a recommendation that's also been accepted unless something's changed. So let me just pull this up quickly, read it in, and then we'll move on. Okay, so here we go. File number 22-2546, roll number 07007331500, address 1037 Beaver Hill Boulevard. We've got an assessed value of $19,491,000. It's a 79 built, 156 suites, 209 outdoor parking spots. I originally made a recommendation to reduce the property to $18,028,000. So the applicant and I had discussions in regards to this property, and so I revised the recommendation to $16,933,000.
Okay,
So,
again, based on,
okay, so I'll give you the effective rent, which is $1,940,000 and $85. And then we have the expenses at $1,059,529.
okay,
Then we've got the net operating income of $922,821.
cap,
With a 545 cap, so no change to the cap there.
5.45,
Yeah.
okay,
And that rounds to 16,933,000.
okay, and Henry, how do you feel about that value?
Yeah, I agree to 16,933. Just to tell the board that the actual taxes reported by the owner were understated because they included a refund from a prior year. I recalculated the taxes, my brief. That was one of the reasons we settled. We changed the taxes and then we agreed on the vacancy. So it changes my valuation I had and Matt's valuation that he had. So we're adjusting for taxes and vacancy, and it comes to those settlements that we had today.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from the panel?
What was the agreed to value?
16,933,000.
Thank you.
All right, now we will then leap across town to 883 Grosvenor. Probably a stray one here that got put on his docket. So again, Mr. Brockus, you can proceed.
Okay, let me just open this up. Okay. One moment. Okay, so file number 22-1919. 83 Grosvenor, which is 12022995000. Assessed value 1,104,000. Roll year 2023, April 1st, 2021. Reference date. One building, 3 stories, 1913. Got 50-year effective age on it to reflect some upgrades. 7 suites, only 4 outdoor parking spots. So they've been good handing in their mailers. No issues there. We've got requests for income information here. They've been good. Oh, we actually have a sale. I didn't notice this. It says January 2nd, 2019. There was a sale for $1,050,000. I don't have any more details on that. Income value summary here. Parameters by the model. You got 1 bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, 6 3-bedroom, 7 total units. Then we got our modeled workup with a 5.65 cap, which I don't believe is in dispute. Then we've got our comps here. You can see that we fall in line with the comps, or we're a little bit higher than 3 of them, and we're a lot lower than 889 Grosvenor, which is nearby. But you notice it's a 2019. That's a brand new building. I actually wouldn't consider that too comparable. Capitalization rate evidence here is on page 5 and 6, page 7. Income Municipal Act excerpts, page 8. This is the most recent income and expense mailer. Quite simply on this one, when you look at the net operating income here, $61,530.31. 2020, that's what they're reporting. Models assessing the net operating income at $62,389, so we're within about $1,000 there. So we're pretty much bang on. In regards to the most recent mailer, it looks like they've been doing some capital work too that they've self-declared in terms of roof, heat, HVAC work, and general property improvements to the tune of $22,000. You know, while that doesn't appear on an income and expense statement, that those upgrades just don't disappear into thin air, and a purchaser would consider those, of course. You can see beside the capital cost summary, there's a box that says, nope, please do not report normal repair and maintenance expenses in this section. That's what they reported. They reported this stuff as cap. They did not report this as normal repair and maintenance expenses. Therefore, it's not in the calculation of repair and maintenance. And the net operating income, which they've declared most recently, is pretty much the same as the model. So you've got the rents here on page 9. They're declaring that they're $844 for a 1-bedroom and a $1564 for the 2 bedrooms. The average model rent $1509.79, so we're right there. They also get a little bit of parking and laundry as well, so it doesn't look like we're overshooting it whatsoever. In terms of the valuation, page 10, see the exterior of the property looks well kept. It was originally built over 100 years ago. The interior, you can see hardwood floors. It looks like some of the windows, though they must have been done since 1913, I would hope. Kitchen is on page 12. You see that they've redone the kitchen, the flooring has been done. So there is a justification for the effective age. It's definitely not original 1913 in there. I believe we have the same cap regardless. So that's my evidence. Thank you.
Any questions, Henry?
Your model rents are higher than the actual rents. Would you agree to the actual rents as being more applicable?
The actual rents being more applicable here.
I have that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, based on what they're reporting, yeah, they're reporting 117, and we are saying 122, so it's a bit higher. But I looked at it, the net operating income at the end of the day.
Page 4, your comparables.
Mhm.
So a subject's more like a house, wood frame, and comparable number 1333 Wellington Crescent. That's a high-rise apartment. Is that correct on Wellington Crescent, Superior Street?
Yeah, and I used, for this one, I just looked at the net operating income of what they most recently reported. I really didn't put any weight on any of these comparables. I just filled them in. So I don't have any details on them, but I wouldn't even put weight on them, really.
So you relied on what page?
I relied on page 8. Page 8 says the net operating income, 61,530 and 31 cents. The model's coming in at 62,389. They're doing some work to the place, so they're taking care of it. Though that doesn't show up on a stabilized income and expense statement, that those benefits don't just disappear. So I just looked at what they reported on an actual basis.
Okay, yeah. So the second page of their questionnaire shows some other requirements like roof, heat, vent, and property improvements. So you disregarded all that. Is that correct?
Oh, well, yeah, they've self-declared that as capital, and it says please do not report normal repair and maintenance expenses in this section, and that's what they reported as expenses that were not normal.
And owners put a whole bunch of stuff in there that we normally consider as be repair and maintenance. Is that correct? So we don't rely on what they state there.
I mean, this is what they've told us. Maybe 1,400 roof. That's a small amount. That probably more like a repair than anything.
And the prior year was some like 35,000 net income. You didn't take that into consideration. 1 year 60 and the other one 35.
Well, I mean, okay, so the expense ratio that you've shown for that is almost 70, which is like the max. So that's an outlier, and I wouldn't include that. No.
Okay, so all questions.
Okay, Richard, any questions?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, any questions?
No questions.
All right, and you can proceed with your presentation, Henry.
Yeah, so you have the photos at the beginning and nothing unusual. They have no parking on the site. So page 15, my income approach. So the line 1 shows the rents, the potential rents, and the discounts. They have discounts there around the $7,000 mark. So line 3, the potential rents, 114,000 after discounts, and the assessor's using 126,000. So the assessor's higher by 8,000 there. We allow for the vacancy, same as the assessor. Line 13, effective gross income. So we stabilize 114,000 versus the assessor 122. They have relatively flat EGI over the 4 years. We do the expenses as normal. So we show utilities is increasing every year. Repair maintenance, we stabilize at 11,000, which is 1605 per suite, which is relatively low. For something is getting 1368 in rents. Potential market rents that we have is 1368. So it's relatively high rents. The expenses are repayments is in relation to what they're getting. So the next page, page 16, is the repair maintenance analysis. So extraordinary repairs, first line, 88, 26, and 10, we disallowed all those. The roof had only 1,400. So we don't allow roof once a replacement. We should allow repair maintenance as we go along. So we allowed 350 for a roof there. Then go down lower, the HVAC mechanical that they report under CapEx, 10,646. We disallowed anything there. So the remaining repair and maintenance is shown there, so that 2017, 2018, we disallowed those 2 high years. They were 15, 17,000. So when they stabilized in the last 2 years, which are lower, which are very reasonable on our part to disallow the high years as we come to 11,235 as the repair maintenance, which is 1605 per suite. And so back to our page 15, we agree on cap rate 5.65. So we're strictly NOI, and it's strictly based on site specifics. We're quite reasonable in repair maintenance. We disallow 2 high years. We disallow a lot of their capex. We go with actual rents as reported versus just actually using market rents for high rises in Wellington, etc. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brockus?
Yeah. So just looking at page 15, you've got your cap rate table here. You've got 99 plus 5.25. Now that you've seen the actual workups on McPhillis, you still would support 5.25 for that age group?
That has nothing to do with the subject property on Grosvenor.
Well, I'm just commenting on the caps in general, the chart you have.
That's the first time I see your cap rates. I would have to analyze it.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, and so for then on page 16 on at Grosvenor, 2019 and 2020 aren't showing any vacancy. Is there a waiting list to get into this property?
I have no idea. And the questionnaires don't show that.
Okay, but you'd agree that there's high demand, given that there's no vacancy?
No, they could have a same turnover, etc., as other apartments, etc. So it's hard to generalize for something like that. So they have only some in suites. So, but only some in suites. If you have one suite vacant, you're all of a sudden you're 15% vacant or whatever. So that the actual vacancy or something like that, or a low amount of suites, we can't rely on that.
Okay, fair enough. I don't have any more questions. I do know the renovations situation at 32 Arden. So if I could get a quick summation in the end in regards to all the properties, that would be great. But in regards to Grosvenor, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, Richard?
I have none. Thanks.
Michelle?
No question.
Okay, summation then.
Okay, so this is for like just cap rates in general and like the Arden property. There was a dispute when it was renovated. It was renovated in 2008 and 2009. Got rent control exemption in May 2009. I got that from the Altus remarks when that property was in their cap rate study and also our notes. So recently renovated, I suppose, would mean it's been renovated in the past 15 years. I'm open to being questioned on that if Henry wants to do that. But just in regards to the cap rates in general, that's a big part of this hearing is cap rates because we either made recs or agreed on the NOI. I would just, when looking over these properties, because it's cap rate, like please look at my rebuttal and compare the applicant stabilization to my stabilization and ask yourself through the lens of looking at especially a repair and maintenance per unit basis, what's reasonable and what's too low in terms of stabilization. That's a big part of where we differ. Thank you.
Okay, Henry.
Yeah, I saw how Matt has done some repair maintenance stabilization on some of the cap rates, and I have major issues on some of those. He tends to go with higher repair maintenance. Sometimes he uses the higher than actuals, and sometimes he uses the pro forma. Sometimes he doesn't. So I would take that with a grain of salt. So we both do cap rates. We can do differently. We have some of the properties in 60s and 70s where we agree on cap rates, so we agree on the middle ground. But I think you should take into consideration the brokers' reports. Now we each show. So they call your CBRE, etc., and they have their particular cap rate, and virtually none of them are below 5, or I shouldn't say none. I think there's only one of the total set. So I believe that the market report should be used to look to compare the cap rates from both sides. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, all right, thank you for your presentations then. We have heard all the items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much.